All right, guys, we are once again on the air and live at AJ's Bar, located at 651 South Main Street in historic downtown Grapevine, Texas. If you happen to be on Facebook, my Barside Jive profile, you just saw a video from me, and I totally got cut off. I mean, totally just, I don't know what happened. It said something about rotating your phone and then froze up, and then I don't know, just don't know. But it is what it is. It's the story of my life. I am so glad you guys are here, and I hope that you told somebody to join you today, because we love large crowds for our gatherings. No riots, just large crowds, peaceful crowds. But you are probably having lunch about this time of the day, unless you're on the West Coast and you're probably having brunch. But anyway, you're sitting down, you might as well watch us, because there's nothing else to do while you eat but enjoy what we have to offer. I mean, it's like supreme entertainment, right? Okay. Well, I hope you guys had a great weekend. It is so nice to see all the live music venues all cranked up. The national touring acts are booking gigs right and left, starting actually this month. So June's going to be hopping, July even more, August is going to be like full-blown ecstasy, if you like, live music. So I'm excited. I hope you are too. And once again, I'm glad you're here. My featured guest today is Argent. Rodney Terence Argent was born June 14th, 1945. He is an English musician, singer, songwriter, composer, and record producer. In a career spanning more than 50 years, Argent came to prominence in the mid-1960s as the founder and keyboardist of the English rock band The Zombies, which that in itself is huge. But then he went on to form the band Argent after the first breakup of the Zombies. Argent is one of the main composers of the Zombies music and made major lyrical contributions to the band's songs. As the band's keyboardist, he used a variety of instruments, including the Mellotron, harpsichord, and the organ. He's a very talented guy. In addition to his work with the Zombies and Argent, he has made music for television series, been a session musician, produced albums by other artists, and has had a solo career which has included 3 studio albums, Moving Home, Red House, and something completely different, Classically Speaking. Argent. Tony's on the ball.
We're not that tight yet. We're not that tight yet.
Tony's on the ball over here with my bell. Argent was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of the Zombies in Brooklyn in March of 2019. And here he is now, Argent.
Hiya, Argent here from the Zombies and Argent, and you're watching Barside Jive.
Thanks, Rod. This is about the time in the show when I turned to AJ and I asked him, "Hey AJ, what are we drinking?" But he's not here today. AJ's actually out, I don't know, scouting marijuana farms somewhere in the U.S. So it's just me and Tony. So we're drinking today Austin's Amber Original by Independence Brewing Company. I believe they're in Austin.
That would make sense. Get it on camera.
Oh, okay. Let's do it again. Very cool. You're like the dude, what was the show where you could only see, part of his face, except we could see none of yours, just your hand. You're the hand.
I'm the guy with the fence in Tim the Toolman.
Mm-hmm. That's a great show. All right. Well, Barside Jive, guys, is sponsored by the Zoo.
The Zoo.
On vocal.
The Zoo. The radio station of the past and the future. king of classic rock. The place where you get those deep cuts, B-sides, the stuff you'll never hear on corporate radio. In fact, every time I listen, I hear something that I've never heard before, which is so cool. And Chaz Mixon does an amazing job with that format. So the station's streamed universally now on the internet, 24/7, 365. You can get it at vocalnow.com. And remember, vocal is intentionally misspelled with a K. Got a cat in a tree. Guys, the zoo will never die. Thank God. In addition to my guest segment, which comes later in the show, I've got that unconventional news, that non-traditional weather, our weird world of sports, and that traffic that's sure to make you go, what the hell did I just see? Delivered with that edginess and that rawness you crave but will not get from those lion-spinning, cover-upping corporate media activists over at the one-sided socialist support and gloom and doom propaganda outlets. That's right, guys. Turn that shit off. Turn us on. I know in this world it seems sometimes that things are pretty hopeless. But remember what that great philosopher Mick Jagger said. Just get off my cloud. That's right, guys. Tell them to get off my cloud, turn them off, turn us on. Here we go. Some of our stuff, well, most of our stuff really is satire, simply because we got to make you laugh to keep you from crying. But the big difference in us and those other guys is that we're actually entertaining. Right, Tony?
No.
Right, Tony? So hang on, because you don't want to miss a thing. And be sure to stick around to the very end of the show, because Tony always likes to stick something special in the butt into the show. I don't know what he's got about the butt, but he put something there, and I'm sure he's got something special today. Hey, I got a joke.
I am Cornholio.
No, not Cornholio. I got a joke. This one's even kind of sciencey for all you believers in science, especially you believers in science, unless the science disagrees with your personal agenda, and then the science is ignored. But this is science, okay? So this neutron walks into a bar and orders a drink. And when the neutron gets his drink, he asks the bartender, "Hey, how much do I owe you?" The bartender replies, "For you, neutron, no charge." Whoa. No Cornholio on that one? Who is texting me?
I was trying to go with the symbol, but it's not working.
The symbol's not working. Some of our sound effects, sometimes they just don't work.
Oh, I know why.
Oh, well, at least we got it figured out.
Doesn't mean I can fix it, but I just know why.
Well, guys, I have it on good authority that you guys loved last week's life hack. So I decided to do it once again. I love your messages, your emails. Keep them coming. They direct the flow of this show. I can assure you. We take that totally into consideration, so keep those messages coming. Okay, so how about one of my life hacks? DC's life hacks. Well, my life hack number 511 is carry sparklers. That's right, guys. Carry those freaking sparklers. I love sparklers. They're like really cool. Always loved them. Don't want to smoke, but feel left out when your friends go for a cigar or a cigarette? Carry sparklers. Now you'll have a reason to ask for a light and hang out a while. What a life hack. Did you like it? No. Tony didn't like it. So if you want to share your life hack or maybe some worthless info, can you imagine lighting up a sparkler?
What if road flare? I'd rather do that. That'd be good.
Road flare that'd be a little bigger bang. I mean, yeah, it would really grab attention.
Let's try it.
Yeah. I wish I had one. We'd do it.
Where do you get those?
Uh,
Police station?
no, you get them at, I think Home Depot sells them.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. Not sparklers.
No.
Pretty soon you can get sparklers coming up in July.
Yeah, it's getting close.
I'll have to get some sparklers for the show. Well, guys, if you want to share your life hack, maybe because you think mine suck, at least Tony thinks so, or maybe some worthless information with us, you can give us a call on the bar phone, 469-844-1631, because we know everything. Hello? No, I'm not interested. Thank you. We know everything, kinda. And remember, knowledge is power. Don't forget those sparklers. By the way, if today is your birthday and you want AJ to sing to you, scratch that. If you want Tony to sing to you, just give us a call on the bar phone, 469-844-1631. Can you sing Happy Birthday?
I can try.
How's it go?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, random person. Happy birthday to you.
If you would love to have Tony sing Happy Birthday to you, Tony.
We got to do it over here.
Oh.
There we go.
Bar phone. Give us a call if we got it on. All right. Oh, be sure to check out my YouTube channel. Just search Barside Jive Live at youtube.com. Click subscribe and then click that little bitty bell.
Oh.
I'm going for the wind up. There we go. And if you click that little bitty bell, you'll receive notifications when I post my premium content, which is free to all of you just because you guys are premium people. And now an important PSA for our friends over at the Atlanta Genital Institute.
Your testicles and you. Take a good look. These are the unlucky ones.
I just love that.
These unfortunate souls are suffering from ESS, enlarged scrotum syndrome. Here at the Atlanta Genital Institute, teams of doctors are at work around the clock to cure this dreaded affliction. Hi, I'm Dr. Zillman, and I'd like to talk to you about your testes. The human testicle is not unlike a balloon. Sometimes it is empty. And sometimes it is full. And sometimes, maybe this will help you understand. Just remember that your testicles, when treated with love and care, will give you years of maintenance-free service. But if abused, well, the inevitable conclusion. So next time, do the smart thing. Don't let anything come between your testicles and you. Thank you.
And guys, a little soap, a little water, some scrubbing, and then a blast from that can of Axe body spray sure goes a long way. I always have to cough after that PSA. I don't get it. Anyway, speaking of testicles, or testes, as he calls them in the video.
Testa.
Oh, we're serious now. We got that cap on backwards.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Jesus was moderately successful in his career, but as he got older, he was increasingly hampered by terrible headaches. When his personal hygiene and love life started to suffer, he sought some medical help. After being referred from one specialist to another, he finally came across a doctor who solved the problem. The good news is I can cure your headaches. The bad news is that it will require castration. Yeah. You have a very rare condition which causes your testes to press up against the base of your spine. The pressure creates one hell of a headache. The only way to relieve the pressure is to remove the testicles. Jesus was shocked and depressed at this news. He couldn't concentrate long enough to even answer, but decided that he had no choice but to go under the knife. You know, Jesus wondered if he had anything to live for anymore. Well, when he left the hospital, his mind was clear, but he felt like he was missing an important part of himself, which, yeah, he was.
Two parts.
A couple of pounds. As he walked down the street, he realized that he felt like a different person. He could actually make a new beginning and live a new life. So he walked past a men's clothing store, probably that Men's Warehouse, and thought, that's what I need, a new freaking suit. So Jesus entered the shop and told the salesman, I'd like a new suit. The salesman eyed him briefly and said, let's see, about a 44 long? Jesus laughed. That's right, how did you know? It's my job, the salesman said. So Jesus tried on the suit. It fit perfectly. As Jesus admired himself in the mirror, the salesman asked, how about a new shirt? Jesus thought for a moment and said, sure. Sounds great. The salesman eyed Jesus and said, let's see, about a 34 sleeve and 16 and a half neck? Jesus was so surprised. He said, that's right. How did you know? The salesman said, it's my job. Jesus tried on the shirt and it fit perfectly. Well, as Jesus adjusted the collar in the mirror, the salesman asked, how about shoes? How about some brand new shoes? Jesus was on a roll and said, well, sure. The salesman eyed Jesus' feet and said, let's see, 9.5 wide. Jesus was astonished. That's right. How did you know? The salesman said, it's my job. So Jesus tried on the shoes and they fit perfectly, just like a glove. Jesus walked comfortably around the shop and the salesman asked, how about a new hat? Without hesitating, Jesus said, sure. I mean, they're on a roll, right? The salesman eyed Jesus' head and said, let's see, about 7 5/8. Jesus was incredulous. That's right. How did you know? The salesman said, it's my job. And the hat fit perfectly. Did you ever feel like there's not going to be an ending to this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought. Jesus was feeling great when the salesman asked, how about some new underwear? Jesus thought for a second and said, sure. So the salesman stepped back and eyed Jesus' waist and said, let's see, I bet you're about a size 36. Jesus laughed. No, I've worn size 34 since I was like 18 years old. The salesman shook his head and said, you can't wear a size 34. It would press your testicles up against the base of your spine and give you one hell of a headache. All right, guys, those of you that are still with us, hold the applause, okay, because we got to get on with the show. I know it's time once again for that segment with all those big-ass raving reviews, our breaking news.
Whoosh, bum, 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 bum,
Dude, it's cold in here.
Yeah.
I think AJ's hanging meat in here. My nipples are icy. Okay, our top news story straight in from the Barside Jive news desk. Hamas calls for an Israeli cease to exist fire. That's right, guys, a cease to exist fire. Gaza. This land has gone far too long without lasting, meaningful peace. That's why today we're calling for an Israeli cease to exist fire, announced Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. Think of this in the same way as a normal ceasefire, but finally we will have no more pain, no more fear, no more rockets, and no more Jews. This move is being hailed by the media as a truly remarkable and historic step forward, and anyone who doesn't agree is clearly an anti-peace warmonger. How didn't we think of this sooner, said an AP reporter, Jonathan Halali. Think of the lives that could have been saved if all of the Israelis stopped existing days ago. Despite the seemingly perfect solution proposed, Israelis have been quite disagreeable and unwilling to compromise with this proposal. It just goes to show you that the Israelis were never serious about peace in the first place, Halali continued. It doesn't get any fairer than this, and yet they continue to exist out of spite. While no deal has been made yet with the Israelis, all Palestinians have preemptively been given a Nobel Peace Prize just for suggesting the idea. And Israel to buy weapons from America with money given to them by America to shoot down Iranian rockets, also paid for by America. Straight out of Jerusalem, where Biden has approved a $735 million weapons sale to Israel. Israel will be paying for the weapons using money from foreign aid given to them by America. According to experts, Israel needs these weapons so they can shoot down Hamas rockets that were given to them by Iran, who paid for them using money given to them by America. You tracking? Yeah, it's all pretty straightforward, said one Middle East expert. Not confusing in the least. According to sources, Iran bought weapons technology with $1.8 billion in cash given to them by the Obama administration. They then provided those weapons to Hamas terrorists in Gaza in order to kill the Jews. Israel is responding with weapon systems purchased with American foreign aid dollars from the Trump administration. Yeah, said the expert, the entire conflict is pretty much a proxy war between Democrats and Republicans at this point. Some in America have started a petition to bring those dollars back to America so Democrats and Republicans can just shoot rockets at each other here at home.
Yeah.
We'd be a lot better off, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be a lot cheaper. Yeah. And Hasbro releases new version of Operation where players just keep adding more masks. Pawtucket, Rhode Island.
I've been there.
Hasbro has released a new version of the classic board game Operation, where players just keep putting more and more and more masks on the patient to make him safer and safer. Instead of actual health care or removing the broken body parts from the patient, players will instead just keep layering masks on him. Players earn points based on how high they can stack the mask tower without them toppling, and how well they're able to cover the patient's nose and mouth. A new commercial described the excitement of the updated version of the game. Can you double mask cavity, Sam? What about a triple mask? Or go for the rare quintuple mask? I sense a new Olympic event.
Oh.
Yeah. But watch out for the electronic buzzer. If you accidentally make any contact with him at all, he will die of COVID-19. And the winning player gets to go to a bonus round where they carefully inject Cavity Sam with all the available COVID vaccines to see if he grows any extra limbs or ears or nose or whatever. At publishing time, Hasbro has further confirmed that the board will be equipped with a microphone, causing Cavity Sam's nose alarm to go off if anyone questions the effectiveness of the mask. Also, from the Barside Jive news desk, Lego unveils new genderless bricks with no male-female connectors. Straight out of Billund, Denmark, as part of its new push towards inclusion and diversity, Lego has unveiled a new set of genderless bricks without male or female connectors, guys. The entirely smooth bricks have no suggestive male nubs or female receptors, and instead have entirely smooth androgynous sides all around. Where does this come from, man? Where does this come from? This represents a new era in inclusive building bricks, said Lego spokesperson Bjorn Erikstrom Slater Walker. Finally, anyone can play with our Legos without being triggered by those horrid male and female parts that simply... No, I think that was an imply. Supposed to be imply. I need a better teleprompter. No, I need a better person to run the freaking teleprompter. Okay, where was I? Anyway, whatever his name is, finally said, anyone can play with our Legos without being triggered by those horrid male and female parts that imply they're only supposed to fit in one direction. Every brick can stack on any other brick without anyone misgendering anything or making a brick feel bad because it only fits in one way. I mean, I guess they're pretty much just blocks now, he admitted. But they're inclusive blocks. Yeah. The little bricks will still, of course, hurt like shit if you step on them. Our trending news item segment is brought to you by our friends over at Body Action Products. And here he is, Body Action Products spokesperson AJ, with a word from Body Action Anal Bleach Gel. Obviously, it'll be me. Body Action Anal Bleach Gel is a super concentrated, intimate area skin lightening gel. It is formulated to help improve the appearance of uneven skin tone and diminish discolored areas of the skin. It's ideal for anal, vaginal, penis, scrotum, nipples, dark underarms, and any other intimate area skin lightening needs. For that asshole in your life that just needs to lighten the fuck up.
Good job.
You know, it's pretty bad when they're your sponsor.
Yeah.
You reach the bottom of the rung. Oh, but trending nationally, Florida recount finally wraps up from the 2000 elections, and Al Gore is declared president. Congratulations, Al. You won. Texas passes law allowing students to lasso and hogtie teachers who promote critical race theory in the classroom. Only in Texas. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot runs for her life after Thomas Sowell, a black man, takes her up on her demand that only black people are allowed to interview her. Well, guys, there you have it. I think it's really time to move on to some rock history. What do you say? Well, guys, it is May 24th, and here's some reasons why this day matters in rock history. In 1970, Peter Green quit Fleetwood Mac. The fame and fortune that came with the band's success and the time he invested in it led to Peter's mental decline and his decision to finally leave. In 1974, David Bowie put out his 8th studio album, Diamond Dogs. In 1975, Earth, Wind, and Fire had their first and only #1 song when Shining Star topped the charts. 1988 was the year, and Van Halen's album OU812 was released. OU812 was going to be titled Bone, but Sammy wound up seeing a delivery truck with the license number OU812. OU812? Get it? He saw it and thought it was funny. The rest of the band agreed, and at the last minute decided to call the album OU812. In 2005, Ozzy and Sharon Osbourne put the Beverly Hills House, featured in their hit reality series, The Osbournes, up for sale. Got one more, guys. The year's 2010. Slipknot bassist Paul Gray was found dead in a hotel in Des Moines, Iowa at the age of 38. Gray died from an accidental overdose of morphine and the painkiller fentanyl. Now, fentanyl is that Chinese drug which has seen a 233% increase in fentanyl seizures amidst the current border crisis because the Mexican drug cartels are sending it through our southern border by truckloads every day. Welcome to America. And that's why this day matters in rock history. Which means, Tony, it's time for COVID Update. It's good, Amber. Well, guys, welcome to year 2 of 14 days to flatten that curve. Well, it's flattened here in Texas, but some other places not so. You know, this just might be our last COVID update. I know I said that last time, but I'm thinking that, because, it's over here anyway in Texas, and I'm pretty much done with it. I mean, I thought it was pretty much over before it started, but, I mean, I said it on Facebook and got, beat up severely. Anyway, but I don't think if it had been for the media hype scaring the crap out of everybody, that it would have been a big deal anyway. But my opinion, guys, my opinion. Today during COVID Update, we're announcing the long-awaited winner of our 2020 school yearbook photo competition. The winner is, you ready for this? The winner is none other than Walter Hub from Coupland, Texas. What a photo. What a yearbook photo. I guess all yearbook photos they're in their pajamas last year. I wish when COVID started, I designed a line of cool pajamas.
Yeah.
And there you have it. That was a great lead in to what's coming up next. Let's do sports. Before we do sports, we'll play our national anthem because it represents the tradition, history, and beliefs of our nation and its people and helps evoke feelings of patriotism among Americans and reminds us all of our nation's glory, beauty, and rich heritage. Well, they may not play the national anthem at sporting events anymore or much more, but right here at Barside Jive, we're going to play it because we believe. Today, we bring you the 2021 World Championship Power Vomiting. I guess he was disqualified. He vomited a little too much. Did you guys see that form, though? I mean, that was... Let's do an instant replay. And just when you thought you'd seen everything. And now a word from our friends over at Foghat Cellars.
Hi DC, thanks for having us on your show. And for you folks, I'm Roger of the band Foghat, and these are our wines. Foghat Cellars. This is a Chardonnay from Monterey County, absolutely delicious. 2014. We have 2013 Pinot Noir from Monterey County. It's absolutely fabulous, a wonderful drinking wine. If you like Pinots, you'll love it. This is a Cabernet Sauvignon from Paso Robles. All our wines come from Central Coast of California. Steve Rasmussen is our winemaker, though in fact myself and Linda actually get involved in the making of some of our wines. Drink, enjoy, go to foghatcellars.com to find out how to get them. Thanks, bye.
And let's all wish Roger Earl a collective happy birthday. Roger just turned 75 on May 16th, same day as my daughter. All right.
Your daughter's 75?
Happy, same day. Same day, different year.
Damn.
Yeah. Guys, do not forget to use the coupon code Barside Jive at the checkout screen for a 20% discount off your purchase. You can even get your bottle autographed by the drummer, Roger Earl, the only remaining member of that classic Foghat lineup. So check them out, foghatcellars.com. Well, Tony,
What?
it's time for some weather. From your Barside Jive Global Weather Center, where we try to stick to the current weather since forecasts are always so wrong, including ours, here we go. Local AJ's weather is, it's currently overcast with isolated thunderstorms throughout the day. Boy, it was really pouring a while ago.
Hell yeah, it was.
Yeah. It is 70 degrees with a high expected of 73. There's a 40%, I believe that's 90% chance of rain. Air quality is good.
Throat quality is bad.
Throat quality is bad. Air quality is good. Winds out of the southeast at 9 miles per hour. Humidity is at a moist 90%. AJ, he loves to say that word. And the sun will set at 8:27 p.m. We've got a full day, guys, a full day. Although you may not see it because of all the clouds. The moon phase is, I don't know, I'm just going to say it, shits its gladimus. For those people out there that like to keep up with that crap, I don't know what it means anyway. But it is windy out east, so let's go to Sarah Mills out on the East Coast for a live report. Take it away, Sarah.
Hang on, Marie, hang on.
That wasn't Sarah, that was Marie. Well, whatever. Wow. It's really windy out there. I mean, it's sure a lot windier than our 9 miles per hour. We'll have to at least give Marie an A for effort. So there you go, Marie. Anyway, speaking of wind, not breaking wind, but speaking of wind, a solar panel, a wind turbine, and a hydro dam are all getting to know each other. I mean, they're sitting at a bar, right? solar panel, wind turbine, hydro dam. They're sitting at a bar, having a beer. Speaking of beer, this Austin Amber is good stuff, guys. Independence Brewing, Austin, Texas. So back to my story. So the solar panel, the wind turbine, and the hydro dam are sitting in a bar, all getting to know each other. And all of a sudden, the dam asks, "What kind of music are you guys into?" "Well, I'm into trance," replies the solar panel. "Ooh, too intense for me," the dam says. "I much prefer classical melodies or a little 60s soul." "What about you, Mr. Turbine? What are you into?" "Me," he replies, "I'm a huge metal fan."
Yeah.
Metal fan. Get it? There you go. And that's your global weather from your Barside Jive meteorologist. Kinda. Here at Barside Jive. Our weather, however, was brought to you by some special people, our friends over at Doritos. It's freaking cold in here, man.
It says 70.
Jeez.
It feels like.
I'm telling you, I'm hot natured. I'm about to freeze. Okay, let's go to traffic while I find a code. So how's it look out there on South Main Street, AJ? Tony?
Oh, look, Claire, it's wet and stuff, but the cars are moving still and nobody's crashed and it's moist.
It's a great report. It may be fine here on Main Street in historic downtown Grapevine, Texas, but let's go to our Houston, Texas affiliate. Damn, it's cold. The KPRC News Desk for a report on traffic conditions out on I-24 East.
You are heading out this weekend. There is some weekend construction you need to be aware of.
Our new traffic anchor, Anavid Reyes, has a look at this weekend's traffic.
Yes, Veronica, we are out here live. We're at exit 57 on I-24 East. If you're looking at traffic, don't expect too many delays. As you can see out here, things look to be moving along just fine. Over my left shoulder, you can see some minor road construction in the area, but that hasn't affected things much this morning. And oh, by the way, just real quick, my name is pronounced Anavid, not Anavid. So if I'm gonna come out here and do these live traffic reports and literally risk my life, I'd appreciate it if somebody back in the studio could learn how to pronounce my name.
Oh, I'm sorry. You got it, Anavid.
Yeah.
And what's it look like southbound?
I mean, just like in the grand scheme of life, think about what we're doing right now. I'm doing a live traffic report on television. This traffic report is going to be obsolete in 3 minutes. I mean, I know I have a report that there's construction in the area, obviously, as you know, but there's a wreck about a mile ahead. And so this is going to be, all this traffic is going to be changed in literally about 60 seconds. So
It looks like you've got an inside source on that wreck. Have you been in contact with the police chief?
have I talked to the police chief? No, I have not. I've actually just literally looked on Google Maps, and every time you guys send me out here for a live traffic report, I literally just look on Google Maps. I like traffic. I look on Google Maps and report to you what I see here. And I don't know if you guys knew this back at the station, but every person in America has access to this.
Well, it looks cold. And it sounds like you may have woken up on the wrong side of the bed.
Yeah, I don't know, or woken up on the wrong side of the bed, or most people are still in bed because no one's watching the local news for traffic. Like in terms of figuring out the best route to work and traffic patterns, I can think of off the top of my head 57 other ways to do this more efficiently. Google Maps, Apple Maps, Bing Maps. My Uncle Ricky still has a TomTom. You can plug the address into that. I don't know. go to a truck stop and rent a CB and talk to one of these truck drivers. He could probably tell you a better way to know what the traffic is. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out why.
Thank you, Anna V.
I mean, she actually called him Ida after he corrected her. Says, I mean, I think during that whole segment they mispronounced his name like 3 or 4 times after he corrected him. Anavid. Anavid. I don't know, that cracks me up. They totally butchered that poor dude's name, and he's pissed. I don't think he'll be in traffic long. But anyway, it kind of reminds me of a joke. Kinda. I mean, it's like distantly close. So a guy walks into a bar. I'm just kidding. It really doesn't start that way. A little boy goes to his dad and says, "Dad, what's politics?" Dad says, "Well, son, let me try to explain it this way. I'm the head of the family, so let's just call me the president. Your mother, she's the administrator of the money, so let's just call her Congress. We're here to take care of your needs, so we'll call you the people. And the nanny, we'll consider the working class, and your baby brother, we'll call him the future. Now think about that and see if it makes any sense." So the little boy goes off to bed thinking about what Dad has said. Later that night, he hears his baby brother crying, so he gets up to check on him and finds that the baby has taken this huge dump in his diaper. So the little boy goes to his parents' room and finds his mother sound asleep. Now, not wanting to wake her, he goes to the nanny's room. He cracks open the door and sees his father in bed with the nanny. He gives up and just goes back to bed. The next morning, the little boy says to his father, "Dad, I think I understand the concept of politics now." Father says, "Good son, tell me in your own words what you think politics is all about." The little boy replied, "Well, the president is screwing the working class while Congress is sound asleep. The people are being ignored and the future is in deep shit." Thank you. I didn't get enough response out of that. I think we don't have a gong. No, okay.
How about a donkey?
That would be good.
Now, how about a phone ring?
Yeah, there we go. Hello? That'll bring us up to our
Attention
featured
all
guest
units.
segment,
We've
which
got
is
'em.
sponsored by Hip and Hippie. Hip and Hippie is a Planet Loving company known for its high-quality, earth-friendly, 100% recyclable candle line and natural body care products. That's what keep us looking so good. Smelling so good. It's no wonder eco-supporting people love Hip and Hippie, hipandhippie.com. As I mentioned earlier today, my featured guest is Mr. Rod Argent. English musician, singer, songwriter, composer, and record producer. He's the dude on the far left in that photo. He is the founder and keyboardist of the English rock band The Zombies, and then later went on to form the rock band Argent. I will be right back with Rod Argent after this quick break.
It's the time of the season when love runs high.
Okay. Did you need to get you a beer?
No, I won't. Actually, I'm fine.
Now, where are you located right now, Rod?
I live in Hampshire, which is a beautiful part of the world. It's about an hour's drive from London, south of London. Yeah, and I live in a barn conversion. So it's a collection of buildings around a sort of quadrant. So you've got one building that used to be the old piggery, went before everything was converted many years ago. And then I've got a huge main area, which is a 30-foot high or 30 barn, which was built, which originally came from the 18th and 17th centuries, but was later on, in fact, in 1996, it was converted into a dwelling, but using all the old beams and everything, you know. So it's a very beautiful place. And then the bit I'm sitting in at the moment is my studio, and my studio was originally a dairy from the farm, an old dairy, and I had it really upgraded when we moved here about 6 years ago. And I had a great piece of luck because a very dear friend of mine, who was a production colleague with me for years, and I produced records with him for a European artist, an English artist actually, called Tanita Tikaram, who actually sold 4 million albums from the record we made on our little studio in my previous house. And anyway, he as far as the US is concerned, we produced one album there for Nancy Griffith, and we also produced an album for a guy called Josh Caddison, who had 2 or 3 hit singles in the top 20 in America. But he said to me, the guy you should get to design your studio acoustically is this great guy called John Flynn, and he's even older than me. So he said he happens to be the guy that designed Abbey Road studios and control room acoustically. And I said, oh man, I said, that's going to cost me an arm and a leg. I can't do that. And he said, no, if he wants to do it, he doesn't take everything on. But if he wants to do it, he won't be that expensive. And he did it for the most brilliant price for me. But the great thing is, I've ended up with a studio, and we've actually been using it for the last couple of years, by the time everything was converted and done, to record. And in fact, we started recording our new album a year ago. And then, of course, lockdown just stopped everything happening. And we're only just now starting to happen again. But the results we were getting out of it were terrific. And we've got 3 completed tracks that I've done here. As I say, the actual acoustic in this control room and in the live studio that I have over there, it's a big enough live studio to have live drums, live Hammond, to have, you know, a little string section if you need. And we had 3 completed tracks. We got a terrific reaction initially from people in the industry in the States, and we were really rocking. And then we had to stop, but we're just about to start up again now. So I've got 3 more tracks, and we're going to put the master vocal on one of those tracks tomorrow. It's the first recording we've done here for the last 9 months. So I'm really, really looking forward to that.
So it's Argent Studios?
It's I live in a place called the Grange, and my previous house in Bedfordshire, which was north of London, was called the Red House, and so it was an old Georgian house. So I called our production and the place that I was there the Red House Studio, Limited, and because I've got a company called the Red House Studio, this is also, I don't know, I guess this is the Grange Studio now, but officially it goes through a company called the Red House Studio. So
Okay, gotcha. Well, let me tell you, I'm in Grapevine, Texas, between Dallas and Fort Worth, just so
great.
you can pinpoint me. I've had many more English than I have America, so it's really cool. And of course, what's interesting is most of my favorites are English, whereas
Right,
I have a
okay.
lot of English fans of the show that say their favorites are American. So whatever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, all my heroes came from America. I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely, obviously. The day I got turned on to rock and roll was when my cousin Jim Rodford, who was for many years the bass player with the Kinks, but also founder member of Argent with me, and was in the later reincarnation of the Zombies with me, and who recently died, unfortunately. But he was 4 years older than me, and he turned me on to rock and roll because I loved music when I was growing up. But until I was 11, I didn't really hear much popular music that I liked. And then one day, Jim, when he was 15 and I was 11, played me Elvis singing Hound Dog, and it just blew me away, and it turned my whole world around. I can still picture Jim in the setting when he put the record on, because he just played me a couple of Bill Haley songs, and I thought, yeah, it's okay, it's all right. He said, well, let me just play you this, and he played Hound Dog, and it just turned my world around. And I thought, as soon as I'm old enough, because I was 11, I've got to form a band. I've got to be part of this in some way or other. But America at that time seemed like a different universe to England. It really, really was. I mean, things are much more homogenous now. There's still differences, obviously, but if you went to New York, even 8 years later, when I went to New York for the first time with the Zombies, all the cars seemed like mobile jukeboxes, even then. Whereas now, everything, all the cars look the same everywhere. I mean, I've got an American car, I've got a Tesla, and which I love, so, but I saw him and I thought, this untouchable being, is something I could never imagine, the two worlds coming together. And I later found out that when we first went over to America, Elvis had two songs that I'd written on his jukebox, and two of our records in 1964. He had She's Not There, and 65, sorry. And he had She's Not There and Tell Her No.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. So how'd you find that out?
I found that out in the 90s. I had no idea when we first went over there, but I was doing an interview very much like this, a long interview with a guy in Ireland. And the guy said to me, and I was telling the story about how I nearly met Elvis. He said, did you ever meet Elvis? And I said, no, but in 1965, we met this DJ at a concert we were doing, and he said, do you want to come up to Elvis's house? And in those days, there was no big deal around it. It was just in the street, and with the gates, the rusty, they were a bit rusty actually, but with the notes on the gates and everything. And we just walked up the drive. We just opened, no security. We just walked up the drive, and we went, knocked on the door. Elvis's father came to the door and said, can I help you? And I said, we're the Zombies from England. Is Elvis in? It was sort of saying, can he come out to play, sort of thing, almost, because we were 19 years old, Right. So he said, and I won't attempt to do an American accent, but he said, well, Elvis really loves you guys. He'd be real sorry to have missed you. And I thought, well, Vernon doesn't know who we are, but it was a very sweet, hospitable thing to say. And he said, why don't you have a look around? And I was telling this story to this Irish DJ, and the Irish DJ stopped me, and he said, I can't believe, he said, I am an Elvis freak. I know everything about what happened to Elvis through his whole life, everything. I said, I can't. He said, I can't believe you didn't know that Elvis at that moment had 2 of your songs on his jukebox. And subsequently, in recent years, we've gone up to Elvis's place, you know, which is a big deal now, and you know everything surrounding it. And they made us sort of star guests and showed us all around and did interviews with us and all that sort of thing. But at the time, we had no idea. But it was, you know, and that was simply 8 years after seeing this guy who I thought was from an unattainable world, that I could have nothing really to do with that music, except I had to be part of it in some way or other. And, you know, a lot of English guys felt the same way, you know, when we first heard Elvis. I always felt it was my first introduction to black music by proxy, because I'd never heard any R&B before that. But very soon it led me into listening to people like Big Mama Thornton, who did the original Hound Dog, into some blues things, you know, Arthur Crudup, obviously, and Ray Charles led me to listen to Ray Charles for the first time, which I still listen to now. I still listen to Ray Charles all the time now. You know, one of my favorite records is Hard Times. You know, this marvelous soulful playing and singing. So, you know, it's a pretty magical time, really.
Oh gosh, I mean, I can't imagine how that made you feel when you found that out.
I was, you know, I'm not normally speechless, but I was I was for a little while there. It really took everything from under me. You know, I couldn't believe it.
Wow. Guys, welcome back to Barside Jive. It is that time where I introduce my guest, and I am honored to have the legendary Rod Argent with me today. He is an English musician, singer, songwriter, composer, and record producer, best known as the founder and keyboardist of the English rock band, the Zombies. It is a real pleasure to have you here today, Rod.
Oh, it's a real pleasure being here. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You know, you've been doing this a long, long time, haven't you?
Yeah, I certainly have. Yeah. Since I was, well, we turned professional. Well, the Zombies formed in 1961, and we turned professional in 1964 after we won a beat competition for which one of the prizes was recording a single with Decca. And the guy who was producing this said, have you thought about writing something yourself for the session? And with the sort of naivety and arrogance of youth that you only have once, and not knowing any of the pitfalls, all the hundreds of things that can go wrong in the studio or anything, I thought, yeah, I can write a record that's as good as the Beatles, you know. And I went away, and I came back with She's Not There, and extraordinarily lucky time to be doing it, because the Beatles had just crashed open the gates in the US, you know, and we were there at absolutely the right time, and the session went beautifully. I thought Colin is going to sound great singing this song, and he did. And it came out, and it was #1 in Cashbox. And as you will know, Cashbox was maybe even a little bit above Billboard at the time. In those days, it's long defunct now. But the Beatles, when they had their first #1, threw something back to the UK saying, we're #1 in Cashbox, you know. And I think we were #2 in Billboard, or it was very, very close to being a #1 in Billboard. But it was just a magic time, because we were still 18.
Wow.
In fact, just 19 when that was a first hit record in the States. And as I mentioned to you before this interview started, we later found out that Elvis, the guy that had blown me away and made me want to turn on to rock and roll, after thinking I only liked classical music, but then made me listen to the rawest rock and roll that I could find, to my parents' horror, when I was 11, for the next 6 months, just seeking out, you know, Little Richard and all the other great rockers that were around at the time. It was just extraordinary that just 8 years later, we found out that Elvis had our records on his jukebox. So that was it was just a dream time for us, really.
Wow. You know, Rod, looking back at your career, which I guess it's like approaching 60 years now, right?
Incredible, yeah.
Oh, it's hard to believe, isn't it?
Oh, unbelievable, really. Whoever would have thought it? I certainly wouldn't have done. But you know, it's still feeling good, and things, if anything, have we've been having some great management in the last 6 or 7 years, and it's particularly helped to develop us and give us the biggest opportunities to keep writing, to keep playing. Our last album was in the Billboard top 100 album sales charts. So it still feels, we still get energized by exactly the same things as we did when we started. We're still in this to create music, to get out there and play and have a ball, and to get across to people and communicate, and to record, as long as we can feel creative enough to record new songs, new ideas. It's still just as exciting as it ever was for us.
Right. When you look back over your entire career,
yeah,
and all your accomplishments, what do you think?
Oh, I mean, it's been a bit of a dream life, really. I mean, there were long periods when I wasn't on the road, but I was always involved with music, and that's all I ever wanted to be. I mean, I had when I left school, I was 18 years old, and it was time to apply for university. And at that time, I actually got a place in university, which was much more unusual in those days than it is now. But to my headmaster's horror, I wrote to them and said, I've got the chance to be in a rock and roll group and to make a record, which was where I was at that time. And the university were brilliant, actually. They wrote back and said, go for it. And, you know, if nothing works out, give us a call in a year's time or something. So the actual timing was wonderful to start what I really wanted to do above everything else. I mean, I really identify with John Lennon in the sense that he said, when he was young, he said music was the real world to him. And what was happening in what others call the real world, was a sort of a lower level thing for him at that time. And reality, to me, it always felt like music. Music always seemed to be the place where I felt most at home, and where I could most communicate, and where I didn't worry, you know. And I was so incredibly lucky that things turned out in such a way that I could start a music career. The Zombies were only together professionally for 3 years, but then we were lucky enough to have a subsequent #1 with Time of the Season. And by that time, I was already with Chris White, our original bass player in the Zombies. We formed a production company, and I was lucky enough to be able to negotiate a production deal for which the first artist was Argent, my group Argent. And then I went ahead and I went on to have some hits with Argent, the biggest one of which was Hold Your Head Up. You know, so I had that performance career. And then after about 12 years of performing on the road non-stop, I came off the road and I turned into a musician that was mainly producing other people's records, that was writing music for television and TV films. And I was involved in music right up until, in that way, right up until 1999, when I actually did a charity show for a jazz musician over here who became a great friend, called John Dankworth. And John was a very well-known jazz musician in the UK, and his wife Cleo Lane had a lot of success in America as well, and did Carnegie Hall concerts and everything, and used to get bunches of flowers from Ella Fitzgerald and Peggy Lee and everything. And during this concert, to raise money for his music theatre that he had, Colin was in the audience again. And I kept up a great friendship all my life with Colin Blunstone.
Right.
And on the spur of the moment, I said, look, I know Colin's in the audience. Does he fancy getting up and singing She's Not There with me? So he got up and sang She's Not There. And then we followed that with Time of the Season, because that's about the only two things we could at that point remember together, how to play. And it felt as if we'd been together 2 weeks before rather than 30 years or whatever it was at the time. So very soon after that, Colin phoned me up and said, look, he said, I've been doing 1 or 2 solo gigs after many years. And he said, why don't you do half a dozen solo gigs with me? And I said, oh, Colin, I don't know. And my memories of coming off the road with Argent were traveling around with huge sort of Pantechnicons with masses of gear, things going wrong every night, or, the Hammond not working, the Mellotron not being able to play, frantic repairs going on before you could actually even get on stage. And the last thing that seemed to be important was the actual 2 hours that you were on stage playing. And, right. I said, I don't think I can go through all that again. And he said, it's not like that now. He said, it's absolutely different. It's been so many years since you've been on the road that, we used to have to take a PA system around with us for the vocals. And of course, everywhere now has great PA systems, et cetera, et cetera. And you just need a decent sound engineer to help you sort that. Anyway, with great trepidation, I actually did these half a dozen gigs with Colin in the UK. And I had such a ball. I really did. And somehow, in a very slow way, we kept it going. And what was supposed to be 6 gigs have turned into 20 years of being on the road again in this incarnation, the Zombies, traveling around the world, getting to a point where, as I said to you, the last 6 or 7 years, we've had great management, particularly in America, and they fashioned things so that we could show ourselves in the best light. And we were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which I would never have thought would have happened in 2019. And it's great, because let me tell you, for those 2 hours or hour and a half or 2 hours that you're on stage, I can swear to you, there's honestly no difference in the feeling to when you were 18 years old. And there's just as much energy on the stage. And we're lucky enough to often, along with people that have followed us all the way through, we're lucky enough to often have a young component in the audience. People, from the ages of sort of 17 and 18 upwards, and we seem to be able to manage to relate to them too, which I would never have dreamed in a million years. But it happens, and we get a lot of young independent bands come to see us, and they come backstage afterwards, and we talk to them. And the only difference is at the end of the show, we can't wait to get home to go to bed. Whereas in the old days, the evening would often start there, at that point. So
you are watching Barside Jive with my guest Rod Argent of the Zombies and Argent. Probably your rider looks a little different nowadays too.
The what? Sorry,
your rider.
Oh, the rider. Yeah, our rider's pretty cool actually. It's okay, but it is different to what it was in the early days. But there are no blue M&Ms, specified or anything like that. No, it's a sensible rider. But no, we tend to get things like organic chicken and some nice quality stuff all over the place. But I'll tell you what, if you're going to keep going when you're 75 years old and 76 this year, which I can't believe, then you've got to look after yourself. And do you know what the extraordinary thing is? That when we're on stage, or when we're playing, maybe in a little festival or something with bands that are more vintage than younger bands, although they're usually younger bands on as well. It's extraordinary because so many people now don't hardly even drink. It's like a survival thing that you've got to look after yourself if you're going to continue going. And you've just got to moderate what's going on, and then you can have the energy that you need. But when you're 17 and 18, you can get away with anything, and nothing has any effect on you. But let me tell you, when you get in your 70s, it's not the case.
When is your birthday?
It's in June the 14th.
In June. Wow. Were drugs really on the rider back in the day?
Not for us, because you have to realize we were so early. We were touring with the Zombies between 1964 and 1967, really. That's when we came off the road. And that was really, there was a little bit of hash around, just a little bit by the time we finished, but really hardly any. And there was no LSD. I mean, we came off the road in 67, and it was really after that the Beatles, for instance, were given LSD by their dentist. They went out, they had some dinner with their dentist, and he put a cube in their drink, and they didn't even know they were having it for the first trip that they had. So it was all a little bit later. And then I didn't go on the road again with Argent until, I guess, probably 1970, 71. And the biggest explosion of drugs really was in that time when we were off the road, the initial explosion of drugs. By the time we were on the road in the 70s, of course, there was masses of drugs around. But it was never anything that we got into deeply. I mean, occasionally some of the guys in Argent would have, I always remember one party that we went to after we played in Los Angeles. We played at a gig. I think it was the Whiskey. It was either the Whiskey or the Troubadour. I think it was the Whiskey in Los Angeles. And in the audience was Jimi Hendrix, Frank Zappa, Eric Burden, all these people. We had a terrible gig because the Hammond was quite an important part of what we were doing, and we used to mic it up in a remote room so you didn't get feedback, spoiling the sound coming through the speakers of the Hammond. And after the first song, someone nicked the mics from the Leslie speaker, so you couldn't really hear the Hammond. So we felt it was a bit of a disaster. But anyway, we were invited to a big party at Eric Burden's place the following night, where Jimi Hendrix was, and I think that Eric was debuting War. I think that's what was happening that night. But anyway, there was a hash cake that was so strong that actually I didn't have any, but the rest of the guys did, and they were, they were on cloud nine for the next 3 days really before we had to play again. So that was cool. So occasionally things like that happen, but I was never really into drugs personally, and maybe that's helped me stay healthy. I hope. Yeah. I don't know, and able to carry on, but who knows?
Well, you're doing well, Rod.
Well, it still feels great to play, and it feels great to write and to be recording again. We're recording a master vocal tomorrow, actually, which I can't wait in the studio here.
Can you give me just a little bit of backstory about some of the hits you guys had, maybe something that stands out that was interesting about these songs? And of course, you've already mentioned them. She's Not There, Tell Her No, and Time of the Season for sure.
Okay, all right then. Well, She's Not There was, as I said to you, was written specifically for the session that we had after we won the Watford Beat competition. They called it the Hearts Beat competition, because we had a recording session with Decca to do it. We had a contract to do a single with Decca. So we went in there and I wrote a song for the session, which was She's Not There. I had 2 weeks to write it. So I'd only ever, I think it was the third song I'd ever written. In fact, the second real song, because I wrote a song a couple of years before, which was very derivative of some of the things that were going on. But then I regard the first couple of real songs that I wrote, She's Not There was the second one. And I went home, I thought, okay, we've got a session coming up. And I thought, where can I start this? So I started getting some albums out, and I played a John Lee Hooker album that I had. And the first track on the John Lee Hooker album that I had was a song called No One Told Me. Now, I hasten to emphasize that apart from the words, no one told me, nothing to do with the tune or the chords or the rest of the lyrics had anything to do with that. But I just like the way that phrase tripped off the tongue. So I started to construct a story round, I thought, okay, I had in my head that I wanted to start with a melody that was a blues-based melody in the first verse. Then I wanted it to develop with some unusual harmonies. And then I wanted it to build to a third section, which just kept gathering momentum. And the whole thing started in a minor key, but I wanted it to end on a major chord and then fall down again to a minor key for the beginning of the second section. And I had in my head that I wanted to improvise something in the middle, which I always wanted to do. You know, that for me, it was important to be able to improvise and play. And that was really the pattern that I had in my head for She's Not There. We recorded it in Decca Studios. Colin sang it beautifully. One thing that I have to mention is the fact that the original single, which I think still sounds absolutely great, is not the version that many people hear now, because it was in mono. It was a 4-track recording, everything was 4-track in those days, and it was mixed down to 1 track on a tape, and that was your final mono mix. Now, we wanted to overdub a second drum part, particularly in the verses, but also through the song. And the only way to do that, once we recorded it, was when it was mixed down from 4 tracks onto 1 track, you recorded something else with the drums as it went down to the 1 track. And that was a way of getting 5 tracks out of the thing. Now, that was the single. And I still think the single sounds really good and really cool, really stands up. But most things that people hear now, it was given to an engineer, an assistant engineer, years later, because no one thought that these records would be important for more than a year, you know, in those days. To mix a stereo mix of She's Not There. And he did. He took the original 4 tracks and mixed it in stereo, but that was without the important drum track that we'd laid down as we mixed it. So it drives me mad that a lot of the time, the original mono single is not the one that people hear, because it's much groovier, much funkier. It's got a much better groove. And sometimes when people use it on adverts, on commercials, you know, and we get syncs like that. These days, sometimes people do use the original one, but often it uses the other one, and the mix is not good. It's got a very light drum track to it. The drums are mixed way in the background, etc. And that's one thing that really drives me mad about She's Not There. But it was a magical thing for us. It came out years later. I was introduced to Pat Metheny when Pat Metheny was just starting to become well known. And he said to me, oh man, he said, that's the record that made me feel I had a way ahead doing something that I wanted to do. And he said to me, all that modal stuff. And I thanked him very much, but I went away and I thought, there's nothing modal on She's Not There. But anyway, I went back and then played my part. And then I realized that what I thought of at the beginning, because the very first thing I wrote on She's Not There was the bass riff at the beginning. And then I put what I was thinking of in my head as just being, I don't want to get too technical, but I was thinking of A minor to D. That I was thinking those were the chords that we were singing over. I'd actually played a musical phrase over it, which was absolutely modal. And the reason for that is that I've been so knocked out with the early Miles Davis group of 1958 with Coltrane and Cannonball Adderley, Red Garland on piano at that time, just before Bill Evans joined him. And that was his, and the first record I ever bought was called Milestones. And Milestones was the first modal thing that Miles did. And then, of course, on Kind of Blue, it was completely modal. The whole album was modal. But I hadn't thought of that at all. But it was just in my consciousness, and it just came out. And it took Pat Metheny to say that to me, made me realise, my God, it actually is modal. I didn't even know what modal music was at that time, but it was just something that unconsciously had come through, you know. So
Right.
that was She's Not There. And then A Complete Dream, because it was #1 all over the world. Apart from the Dear Old UK, where it only made sort of number 10 or something. And we ended up having less of a career here than almost anywhere else in the world. And then the next big hit in the States, of course, was Tell Her No. And I can tell you the thought behind Tell Her No was I'd just been on tour with the rest of the band, a package tour, and one of the artists was Dionne Warwick. And we got to know Dionne, and she was lovely. She was really nice. But of course, she was doing a lot of Burt Bacharach songs. And it really struck me at the time. And again, I don't want to get too technical, but Burt Bacharach was using a lot of sort of jazz inflected chords in his voicings of the chords. You know, things that weren't just plain chords, but had upper harmonics in them, etc., etc. And I thought, this sounds beautiful. And I thought, I've got to try and write something like that. Now, I'm not pretending that Tell Her No sounds anything like a Bacharach song, because it doesn't. But I wanted to use some of those chords with a added sort of jazz voicings, and that's how Tell Her No got to be written very quickly. But that, in a way, that came out of hearing Burt Bacharach, who I still think is a wonderful composer, you know, and a very soulful composer, and you know, suiting people wonderfully, like Aretha, you know, as well as some of the other sorts of songs that he's had with other artists as well. And then the third one you mentioned, Time of the Season. Now that came out of listening to another song as well. And in those days, you'll know better than anybody that in those early days, most radio was AM. And certainly in the UK, it meant the reception was fading in and out all of the time. And a lot of the stuff I was listening to was on Radio Luxembourg, because there was no needle time on the BBC at that time. If you were lucky, you got 40 seconds of about 4 records every week, and that was about it. So on Radio Luxembourg, I used to listen at night. And anyway, I heard Smokey sing Tracks of My Tears. But with a terrible reception, I thought for the first few weeks of listening to that he was singing If You Look, what was it I thought he was singing? Oh, I thought he was singing It's the Time of the Season to Trace the Tracks of My Tears. And of course he was singing If You Look Closer, It's Easy to Trace the Tracks of My Tears. And I was a bit depressed when I realized they weren't the correct words. And I thought, well, I love that phrase, I'm going to use it. So I built a song around Time of the Season. And that was the genesis of that song.
Wow. You know, what great songs, Rod. You guys, just so much talent. Why did the Zombies disband? Was it like 67?
It was 67.
Yeah.
And they disbanded because in those days, the world was really a very much bigger place. And you, I mean, nowadays you can have a hit in Outer Mongolia and you'll know within a day that you've got a hit in Outer Mongolia because of social media, because of everything else. In those days, things took months. Information took months to come through. And we had 2 things going on. Firstly, our management ripped us off horribly. And we weren't the only people that happened to, but it happened to us. And as we were based almost entirely in the UK, and as we had less success in the UK than almost anywhere else in the world, but we didn't know where we were having the success in the world at the time. We were in a situation where out of 3 years of professionally working on the road, we came away with just breaking even from that side of things. We didn't make any money at all. We later found out through someone that worked within the organization that we were ripped off to the, and listen to this, we were ripped off to the tune of £2 million. Now in the mid 60s, you've got to try and imagine how much money that was.
That's a lot of money.
And we ended up with not with just breaking even, except that Chris and I, because we were the writers in the band, we were lucky enough to have really honest publishers. So all our songwriting royalties would come to Chris and me. So we were fine. We didn't have a problem with money, but the other three guys in the band had nothing. And our guitarist said, look, he said, I'm getting married in a month's time. He said, I've got to leave the band. And that seemed to be the catalyst for the band starting to break up. And many years later, we found out that at any one time, we almost always had a hit somewhere in the world. We went over to the Philippines to do 10 nights, and we thought we were going to be playing a little bar somewhere because our manager said to us, look, boys, I've done a deal for you. And he said, I can guarantee you won't lose money. And we went and we got off this plane and we thought, is the president of the US on this plane or something? Because there were thousands of people at the airport and they were there for us. And we just couldn't believe what was going on. And we played 10-night residency in a place in Manila called the Araneta Coliseum. And we played to 40,000 people a night for 10 nights. So it wasn't complete 40 every night, but it was between 30 and 40,000 every night for 10 nights. And we ended up making, we were playing for £80 a night between us. So that just gives you a slight feeling of what was going on. So, so we split up, and then we split up. And because we knew we were going to split up, Chris White and I said, look, before we split up, if this is actually going to happen, we have to produce an album ourselves so that we can get our own ideas of how our songs should sound, because we're becoming more and more frustrated with the sound and the mix on our recent singles leading up to that point. And we felt that some of the demos we were doing were better than the final masters. So
were those decisions based upon the label? Or was the label pushing you a direction that you didn't want to go?
No, it wasn't that. It was, we had a producer who was a friend and a very fine musician, but he was an old school musician. And he was in charge of the first session where we did She's Not There, You Make Me Feel Good, Summertime, and It's All Right With Me. And we thought that all those four mixes were great. So we got no problem with that at all. From that point onwards, our producer, because he was old school, instead of just taking what was there and getting the best out of it, he would do things like, well, what made She's Not There a hit? Oh, well, it was a very breathy vocal. We've got to emphasize the breathiness of the vocals, rather than just letting the thing groove and getting the most out of what was there, which is what he did on the first session. So this got more and more true, we felt. And we felt sometimes that we would record a track, and while we were recording in the studio, we used to feel the groove was great. And then he would never let us be there on the mixes. We would come back after it was mixed, and we would think, I remember Colin saying on one track, is that the song that we recorded? It sounded like a different song to him. So this was very frustrating. So we went to CBS and said, look, we may be breaking up, but will you give us some money to make an album, to produce that ourselves? And they did. They gave us £1,000, which even in those days was not a lot of money. And we recorded very quickly. I've just got the session notes. I didn't think they existed anymore, but I've just got them for the very first session we did. In 3 hours, we did 2 tracks from Odyssey and Oracle. I mean, we may not have finished them, or we hadn't mixed them in that time, but 3 hours we did 2 tracks, and I think it was Friends of Mine and Carousel 44. I think we did that in 3 hours. But we loved it, and we loved what we finished up with. We played CBS. CBS loved it, but we weren't anything in the UK at that time. Nobody played it at all.
Yeah.
So it got great reviews, but absolutely nobody played the album. So we split up. And then, of course, as you know, 18 months later, a guy in Boise, Idaho, a DJ, started to spin Time the Season. And in the very slow way that things used to be able to happen in those days, the ripples started to go out, and people started to turn on to this song. And then it suddenly took off and caught fire, and it just zoomed up the charts. We'd broken up by that time. Chris and I had done the deal, or were doing the deal for our production company to produce Argent and to produce the first Colin Blunstone album. And Colin's first album was gorgeous. It was a big hit in Europe, and the single from it, "Say You Don't Mind," the old Denny Lane song that we did with a very small string section only, was a huge hit in the UK and in Europe, and it just felt great because this was coming from nowhere, and it was helping us push our new projects. And suddenly, the Zombies were no more. We'd been 4 years semi-pro. We built up a really big local background from 1961 to 64. Together professionally, only 3 years, during which time we were almost always in the UK, and our career just went down and down. And then we split up, and that was it. But, that was the Zombie story. And then I always remember Chris White phoning me up it must have been 15 years later or something, and saying, "My boys at university," he said, "and do you know Odyssey and Oracle is a cult album in colleges now, in universities?" And I said, "Oh yeah," and I put the phone down. I remember saying to my wife, "No, it's not," but it was, and it seemed totally unbelievable to me. And honestly, now that record sells more year in, year out than it ever did, even in the US when Time the Season was #1. It's never going to be Dark Side of the Moon in its sales, but it just doesn't stop. And each year it sells more and gets more downloads. And someone said to me that Time the Season I don't know, these things go all over the place, but I think Colin said, "Oh, one of our favorite singles from years ago is Whiter Shade of Pale." And he said he saw that it had got 80 million streams or something that year, maybe, or something. Anyway, from Spotify. He said, just through interest, I put Time the Season into the Spotify thing, and it said 120 million on it, So it's quite extraordinary. And these, and obviously people making inquiries about things so they can hear it. Often they're young people because they don't know what it is. They hear it somewhere, and they dial it in, and it comes up. So unbelievably, it still seems to have a life which is growing. Along. I mean, we did a year with the original lineup of the Zombies, but with the additional current band, as we call it, the band that we're with now, so that we could replicate every harmony and everything else that was on the record. And the tour was brilliant. It just had fantastic reaction, and it was the year after that we, as I said to you earlier, we ended up being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So things just seem to still be going. We're an emerging rock band.
Yeah, you really are. Isn't that amazing? Wow.
Barside Jive shall not be responsible for any incorrect or inaccurate information caused by this broadcast. Barside Jive does assume, however, all responsibility for the satirical nature of its content and for the occasional fictional nature of its content. All characters appearing in this broadcast, even those based on real people, except for our featured guests, of course, are entirely fictional, and any resemblance between them and any persons living dead or undead is purely a miracle.